the Jordan Rich Show theme in the background. My name is Morgan, filling in for Jordan, and I have an in-studio guest at 1 in the morning, and I'm very happy and fortunate to have an in-studio guest. He's been on with me off and on for almost 30 years. We go back to 1980 or 81, the first time you're on radio. You have seen him in many a motion picture, fighting Steven Seagal, or fighting Jean-Claude Van Damme, or pretending to beat up George Clooney in Ocean's 11. My buddy
How do you
Scott,
know I was pretending, Morgan?
because I still see him around, and if somebody your size really beats somebody up, there'd be more damage done.
Well, he had. What you do not know is he had to take 6 months off.
Oh, okay. Because you really hurt George Clooney.
No, I'm just kidding.
I didn't think so. This is Scott Schwartz. Say hi, everybody, to Scott Schwartz. Scott Schwartz, say hi to everybody.
How you doing, guys? It's great to be back in Boston again.
And we're going to be talking about a variety of things, your movie career, your old wrestling career, and more importantly, the projected actors' strike coming up at the end of June.
Oh, yeah.
Let's start with that. We just got over a writer's strike, and I would think that Hollywood would want to avoid any more stoppages in their action.
Well, you know, unfortunately, as you know, dealing with labor and unions and things like that, it's always the working guy that wants to avoid the strike. Mm-hmm. The administrative people get paid no matter whether there's a strike or not. They're not the working people. They work for the company who essentially gets paid from A to Z.
And not to knock George Clooney, but since we mentioned his name, he could afford to outlast a 30, 40, 60-day stoppage.
George Clooney could probably afford to outlast a 30, 60-year strike. But, yeah, you know, it's a great nucleus, and you know better than anyone that the people that go into the ingredients into a film, there's a lot of working people on that set. The producers, you know, they're behind the scenes sort of, but you have people out there, the 18, the 20-hour-a-day people that are out there constantly. And they're the people that suffer, essentially. People that are negotiating an end of the strike, they're people that are being paid no matter what. The strike goes on, they're at the negotiating table negotiating. If the strike is elongated for some reason, they don't care. They're getting paid.
What is the issue or the number of issues this time around?
There's lots of issues. Of course, new media, which essentially means the internet. You can go on YouTube and basically watch anything you want. You can go on radio stations or TV stations, NBC.com. You can watch programs that were played the night before.
Right.
You know, that's no residuals. That's money that's not. And the producers have that money.
Right.
So those are issues. The health plans, they keep raising the rates. It's harder for people to get. I mean, let's face it, I've been in it for a long time. So I'm making X amount of dollars, and my residuals are X amount of dollars. But there's people that just got into it that are not making that money. There's people that are going out on pregnancy leave that are not making the money or the insurance that they need to cover those things. And that can be a lot of money if you're a single mom and you get pregnant. And those are a lot of issues. And there's a lot of, and we're just looking for a little more, or to open the door to negotiate for these contracts and make sure that in the future, because in the future, maybe 10 years down the line, people don't realize this. Notice all these TVs that you buy nowadays are internet ready. Mm-hmm. That's because that's the future of TV. There will be no more cable companies.
Right.
There will be, you log on to NBC.com, you look down a list of 10,000 films or TV shows, and you play it. It'll open the door of opportunity for a lot of independent films and independent TV shows, but it won't essentially, you know, if we don't prepare for that now in our contract negotiations, we're going to be left behind, and they're going to be running it nonstop, and you're not going to be paid for it.
Let me ask a question. For an example, when a movie is sold to TV, if TBS, they buy a bulk of movies from Universal or from other studios. And they decide to show Fire Down Below with Steven Seagal, a film which you did
Which
some
they've
stuff.
done.
Right. And they may even show it a Friday night, a Saturday night, a Sunday night, one of their extra packages.
Right.
No, who gets the money for that being shown 3 times?
Exactly. Very good question. A lot of people will come up to me and say to me, well, Ocean's 11, which was just playing last week, played like 10 times in the week, back to back to back to back.
Right.
And everyone came up to me and said, oh, you're going to get great residual checks. I said, well, the harsh reality is that TBS especially buys blocks of the film. Like they'll buy, we're allowed to show it 25 times in a month.
Right.
And they give you a check, which is, $5,000 or $8,000 or whatever it will be, depending on what the film is. And then you're bought out. They can run it as many times as they want.
And that happened over the years from the 50s and 60s on TV when a contract would cover, let's pick a round number, 10 rotations. So if you're on Gilligan's Island, you're one of the 7 actors on Gilligan's Island, and the first 10 times that went through season 1, season 2, season 3, times 10, you got a check. And the check got a little smaller as it got closer to the 10th time. And the 11th time, which might have been only 2 or 3 years after the show had been taken off the air, you get no more money.
Yeah, those checks were very small to begin with. And at that time, of course, the actors were not preparing for what the future has become.
Right.
It was like you got to catch The Wizard of Oz every year on CBS at in October, right around Halloween time, or you had to wait another year to see it. You didn't see it playing every other week on TBS, and Ted Turner buying it and all over the place. And you go on YouTube and you download these things, and it's too available now. It's too
There is so much diversity out there through YouTube, through MP3s. Let's be honest. It was only roughly 25 years ago that we were happy that we had videotape.
Oh, yeah.
And videotape's become a dinosaur practically.
You're absolutely right. It's like the Sony Betamax.
Yeah.
It came into play, and before long, VHS took over, and everyone was, oh, VHS is great. Oh, VHS. Now you go into a store, and you cannot find VHS. You're
Right.
walking around in circles, and you're looking around, especially when you look like me. People are looking at you, and they're saying, why is this guy circling around the store?
Now, I'm glad you said look like you. For people listening right now, mention some of you. Now, because as a stuntman, you cross over to do stunt work and to do acting. And you can either be hired as a stunt person or you get hired now as an actor. So let people know scenes that you have done. I'll let you describe the Ocean's 11 scene.
Yeah, I was hired as a straight actor on that film. The great thing about being a former professional wrestler is when I first got into acting, a lot of my roles were, do this, hit the floor, go through the wall, go over the table, do all these magnificent things that men usually don't do with their bodies. You can't have like, Harrison Ford or someone that can't do those things. So to have a bad guy that was fully functional and be able to handle lines, handle dialogue, handle the movements, handle the look, of course, all that's ingredients. Sometimes you'll have a guy who's a big guy and he's a horrible actor. How many times have you sat through a film and you looked at a guy and at a particular look, the minute he opened his mouth, it was downhill from there.
I've got an example, and I won't say his name, but he used to play football in the then AFC West, and his initials repeat, but I'm not going to say his name. But, yeah, see, I whispered his name to Scott, and Scott realized, yeah, that's the example that we're talking
The
about.
minute that guy stepped out of college football, his career just went right down the toilet.
Well, he had 2 or 3 years in the NFL, but he was
injured and steroids and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, but that's what you're talking about. People who were chosen to be in films because they're big.
Right.
But they can't act.
No.
Yeah.
And it's apparent, but, it is what it is. I'm very thankful. I mean, I just thank, people like you who, in the very beginning of my wrestling career, put me on the radio and pressed me, and on the road when I called in and called you from all places all over the world, basically, and you just right on the radio. And what are you working on now? People like that. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to Walter Killer Kowalski, and that's one of the reasons why I'm here in Boston right now. He's in a rehab center. He'd fallen down and hurt himself, and I came back to see Walter. He was a great, great man, a father to me. Yes. Well,
yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
I mean, in his diminished capacity with his knees, acting up, and it's very painful for me to be 3,000 miles away, and I hear about that, and I flew right back. Walter has always been like a father to me.
Which you have done before. This wasn't the only time you've come back.
Exactly.
Because a malady or calamity has befallen Walter.
Yeah, and he's a great guy. And unfortunately, when you get news 3,000 miles away, sometimes it's exaggerated. And people are saying, "Oh, it's the end of the world," and you fly back, and he's joking with you, and you're talking about Vince McMahon and clowning him up and down the walls and laughing your ass off, and it's like, am I allowed to use that word now?
Yeah, you can say that word.
I think
clowning.
But yeah, Walter is in the rehab center right now, and I know he's very, very popular here in Boston. He was a great professional wrestler. Anybody that doesn't know who he was, get your head out of your ass. He was a great champion, a great man. Anybody that wants to send well wishes or any kind of get well cards, his address is P.O. Box 67, and that's in Reading, Mass. 01867. And I've sent him so much stuff through the years. I remember his address by heart. I can't remember my own address, but I remember Walter's address.
I'll tell you what, I have a break to take, and when we come back, I want you to go over some more of your film work, your film history.
All right.
I know one of the times I had you on, we talked about backyard wrestling, which declined and has had a rise again, partially due to the UFC and the other things out there where people are just not trained to do the fighting things. And they see someone being hit with a chair on TV, and they think, well, we got a chair in the garage. Let's have a match, and I'll hit someone with a chair. It's not that simple, and there are some really serious injuries going on out there.
It's all sensationalism, and you know what? I can tell you better than anyone, the human body is extremely pliable and extremely strong, but it's also very fragile. And these idiots are out there hitting themselves with chairs and flying off rooftops onto tacks and nails and all this other nonsense. And really, the bottom line of the match is death, because really they're gonna, if not they're gonna kill themselves now, they're gonna shave years off their lives. And you have a bunch of idiots out there doing it, and they think that, and we talked about this, they think they're going to send a videotape to Vince McMahon. He's going to say, "Oh,
yeah, got to hire that guy.
Get him in right away."
It's like 40 years ago, you go to a baseball game, you hope to make a tremendous catch, and the team is going to say, "Hire that kid right now. He's got what we need."
Yeah, jump off the third level and grab the ball and tumble down 18,000 flights of steps and head down to training camp next year.
Tell you what, if anyone wants to call, join our conversation, ask Scott about some of the movies. He has done some of the celebrities, and he has worked with most of the major action stars over the past 20 years. So if you want to give me a call, 617-254-1030. You get a chance to speak to my buddy Scott Schwartz, sitting right here in the same studio as I am, making sure the Jordan Rich Show goes as smoothly as possible on Mother's Day 2008 here in BZ, where the time is 1:21.